Happy you could join us on, you'll see why in a minute, we're celebrating this, Kazimir Pulaski Day. That got a smile, a rare smile out of MLB Mike, who's on the board here.
Smile all the time.
He's excited about this because he is one of the guys that helps to manage the Pulaski Days. He's a proud Polish person, as am I. We've got a few in studio here because Mom's in studio. And I don't think my colleague and buddy Clay has any Polish heritage. He's shaking his head at me. I didn't think so. We would have found that. But my question to you, Mike, to celebrate Kazimir Pulaski Day is, this might be a tough one though, because usually it's kind of like, okay, whatever, just say a sandwich or whatever. Favorite Polish food? That's what I want to know.
Oh, if it's made right, gołąbki.
Okay, that's a good.
Yeah, absolutely. Kibas is across the board fine, but if you get the right gołąbki, which if the non-Polish don't know what that is, it's a cabbage roll around some kind of a meat concoction.
Yep, beef rice combo usually.
Just, incredible
with tomato sauce on top.
Yep.
That's a good pick. That's a solid. If we ever did, you weren't here for this episode, Mike, but we did Thanksgiving foods a draft over Thanksgiving because we actually had a show on Thanksgiving on the Shane Graham show, and we actually drafted a whole meal on the show. Live.
What one?
Well, see, that's what we needed. I actually had a guest lined up to grade our picks the next week, but then he didn't end up coming on, so they never got graded. Okay. So we ended up picking basically like draft style, where like a fantasy draft, we picked in like a snake format. Okay, you had to pick a main, two sides, and a dessert. Oh, wow. And then also the play-by-play and analyst combo that you would want to listen to for your Thanksgiving game, because I wanted to have a sports element to it.
Okay, well, you had to reach out for that. Okay, got it.
So yeah, we had a lot of the traditional ones, obviously turkey and all the traditional sides.
I'll be the same. I'm going to go along those lines. I mean, turkey and dressing and mashed potatoes and gravy and it's all good. Commentators, I don't pay much attention to that. I'm watching the game, so
right. I feel like that's more of an old school concept too. I think it seems like people are more focused on the commentators nowadays. But not that you would have listened to him, not that he's of your era, but like a Vin Scully, he would have been a type to kind of leave
Bernie
it.
Harwell.
Yeah,
and everybody's armchair quarterback nowadays, and they have something to say about everything, and I don't like that so much. Let them do their job. Ernie was great. Vince Scully was great. These guys, I don't hate them enough to say, you have to stop doing this. I don't. So what do you think about that?
I think it's a little bit of a generational thing. I think the younger people have a tendency to like the filling that, say, like a Jason Benetti has a tendency to do. He doesn't leave a lot of moments. He's very active. Clay Kregel, who's in from Encore, who's in studio to co-host and talk some memorabilia and a bunch of subjects. I know he's a Benetti fan, but I do think this is somewhat generational with these commentators, because you like Dickerson too, sure, but he's got a different style.
Yeah. I think the combination of Benetti and Dirks together, those guys are just. Baseball can be a little bit slower naturally as a game, but with the season being the length that it is, I think sometimes you do need some entertainment in there, and I think Benetti does a great job balancing that. And Dirks, we never really know what Dirks is doing up there, but he occasionally provides some good analysis and talks about fast food deals and pizza and whatever. But
I like that you mentioned Dirks, because he's a regular guy.
He is.
He just is, and I love when he's on the air, and he always gives you something, and he lived it. He was right there.
Yep. He doesn't have much of an ego to him for a guy that played a few years in the MLB, and Yeah, he just seems like a regular dude that likes baseball and likes to make jokes and kind of mess with Benetti at times. So.
He's a good fit with Benetti, I think, too. Mike, do you like Dan Petrie as the pairing for either Dickerson or Benetti?
I mean, if you give me any guy old school, back when we're talking 68 Tigers now, but he went around that block and he has got it down. He knows exactly his delivery. If somebody's put off by it, I don't care. But no, he knows his stuff, and he's very insightful about these young guys coming up and what they might be or might not be doing. So I like him.
I like when the Dans are paired together, Dickerson and Petrie. I think that's a pretty good combo. But they also made the Petrie-Benetti combo work better, I think, as time went on. Benetti kind of loosened him up, where he's not as loose as Dirks, but nobody's as loose as Dirks up there. I think he's almost too loose, as Clay referred to.
I don't know. I just like the freewheeling. Throw something out there that the everyday guy is going to, oh, wait a minute. Hey, yeah. That's true, kind of a thing.
You can see why that guy was good in the clubhouse, because he's got a lot of clubhouse isms from his career, but you can see how he would get along with pretty much everybody. And even the way he talks about people, you can tell some of the people he talks about maybe weren't getting along with the clubhouse quite as well. Maybe, like, for example, somebody that recently got signed again by the Tigers. The way he talks about them is a little bit different than the way he talks about everybody else, but you can tell he got along with everybody else. Sure. That it was like, oh yeah, he just rolled with their personalities. And you need guys like that can fill a spot and kind of fit in with all the other guys, because I'll just name them. The Verlanders of the world may not necessarily fit in with everybody, but he's also a star player. He's a pitcher. He's a little bit more volatile. He's going to be a little different on his start days, so he might provide a little bit different element in the clubhouse. Doesn't mean it's bad.
He's earned that. He's a Hall of Famer until he retires, but no, he's earned that, and all the stud pitchers or stud players are. So, yeah, if you want to get mad at a Verlander for offending you, get over it, I'm glad he's there. I really am glad he's there. He's going to be so much for the younger guys.
What do you think of the moves so far, Mike? We haven't been able to talk about the moves basically since they've started making moves, because they were a little bit slow in the start of the offseason. Then they went for Valdez. They got Verlander in there. They found out that Olson's probably not going to go this year, so they filled in Verlander there, so they have a bit of a bridge. Yeah, I like the move. I think he's still pitching remarkably well. He's my age, and he's still pitching, which is amazing to me.
He had a killer end of last year, Verlander did, and whether he can carry it forward, I don't know. But to have the guy that's been around the block, like I said, have there for the young guys, he still sounds like he wants to pitch every fifth day, and is he going to, or just hit year number 43? So he had a birthday here, or it's coming up.
I think he just hit it. Yeah.
Okay. And good for him. And I'm so glad he came back. I thought that was just a pipe dream. Someday, kind of a wish, but he's done enough, and he knows his way around everything, and he can give so much knowledge to these young guys.
And to have him as wherever he ends up slotting in at, I don't know what you talked about him basically pitching every fifth day and being a regular in the rotation. That would be the hope as long as his health holds. I don't even know beyond Skubal and Valdez, I assume, how those 3 through 5 are now going to slot in, because you just got good veteran pitchers there with Mize, Flaherty, and Verlander.
They've picked up so much pitching, like they have every year since Harris has been there. They got guys in the wings like you read about. Not sure if any of them can step up, but they've got the backup. They got the backup that if somebody like Melton, he was going to be one of the 5, and now he's not. He's going to be put on hold because he's got an arm problem. So they got other guys.
They seem to be right sizing their rotation and bullpen now. We're going to talk about this some with Tony Wolak of the Hockey Writers, who's going to be covering the Red Wings for us later in the show. But he's talking about possible trades for the Red Wings that basically take somebody and slot them ahead so you can move everybody else down. And I feel like that's what they tried to do with the Tigers rotation. They got a couple guys that will rest pretty well at the top, both at the front end and the back end, because you added Jansen, you resigned Finnegan, and now you've got those two in the mix with Vest. So you slot everybody into, in baseball, it's kind of the middle, because you go into middle relief, you go into the earlier innings of relief, and you've got a lot of guys that can fill in and be a sixth starter, like you said. Melton, we'll see what happens with his injury, but Montero and some of the other guys on that team. And then you've got a lot of guys that are put in the right place. I really hammered Tommy Canley, which was probably brought up bad memories of last year.
I think a lot of people hammered Tommy Canley last year.
There you go. That's what we needed there. And because he was the guy that it was like they needed somebody else to fill that role, and then they threw him out in the eighth, and that just probably wasn't really the right time for him. And now they've got guys, high leverage guys, that can come in and do a lot. I actually liked Canley for a good portion of the year. He was just overexposed. Yeah. He was shown to other lineups too much. Now they won't have that issue as much.
Scouting does. Just like the Tigers' offense last postseason went dead, they knew what they couldn't hit, and they just keep feeding it to them, and they couldn't adjust. That's the name of the game. Every team's got to do it,
and hopefully the discipline improves this year. They were trying, and I think at the first half of the season last year they were more disciplined. We've talked about that, Clay, how the difference between the first half and the second half, especially on the hitting side, but pitching as well, was pretty stark.
Yeah, we saw guys like Zach McKinstry made the All-Star team last year. Hot first half. Javi Baez, hot first half, made the All-Star team. So, they kind of all fell apart at the same time, it seemed like, at the second half of the year. But moving forward this year, I expect guys like Green, Keith, hopefully Meadows take a step. I know Hinch was talking about that on the telecast yesterday, that he wants to see everybody kind of lift up a little bit. And I think the Tigers are in a great position where their pitching can carry them up until the trade deadline. And if they do need to make a move, and add a bat or two, I think they have the resources to do so at that time.
We talked about that with Brandon Day a little bit when we debuted the MLB coverage last week, because we talked about possibly consolidating some pieces at the deadline for a bat and saying, okay, we're going to gather as much information we can over the course of the season, who's coming up from the minor leagues, who's doing well at the major leagues, and where's our hole to fill here.
Yep. And I'm reluctant to McGonigal's killing it. Mm-hmm. I'm hoping that they just settle down, let him get some seasoning down at AAA, not bring him into the fire right away. I mean, right now he's killing it, but he's playing it against a lot of spring training players. Just like the Tigers have been putting out there. What have they won? 2 or 3 games so far? And spring training records don't mean anything. You're putting those players out to get some seasoning, and a lot of those guys are not even going to be around. But for McGonigal to be doing this, great. He's been doing that all along, but top-notch talent against him once he gets here. I'd hate for him to be over his head.
He's an interesting one because I get the need for seasoning, and I do think that he could probably use some given his age and everything, but he's also excelled at every level he's been at.
Okay, then
so
there's that.
So no, you're right though, Mike. That's kind of the juxtaposition with him, that you don't necessarily know. Okay, because he is a professional hitter too at his level. I know he hasn't been professional yet at the major league level, but he just doesn't seem like the guy that's going to wither under the pressure either.
I know. That's everything. All signs are up, thumbs up, all the way across. But it just makes me nervous just to have a guy that's never been to AAA and throw him into the limelight and if he's going to stumble. Everyone stumbles, but how bad? And hate to take the feet out of them, or take them out of the knees, I guess I should say. But yeah, I'm hoping they keep him down, but at this point, I'm not so sure.
I
It's
think
gonna be hard.
The big thing with him is there's never been a clearer pathway to playing time for him right now.
Yeah.
We don't know if Parker Meadows is going to be the regular everyday center fielder, which kind of shifts Javi Baez out to center field potentially. Trey Sweeney's down right now. He's hurt. So I think there's a clear opening at that shortstop position. We saw yesterday on the telecast. McGonigal played. He had some pretty good plays defensively. I know that was a little bit of a concern at times, but he's kind of shown it all this spring.
Yep.
And I know MLB Mike, you did say that spring training doesn't matter too much, but he's showing he belongs so far.
I
know,
and I was hoping he wouldn't so much.
right?
Yeah. Well, and I do think that that's one of the reasons they didn't add bats in the free agency period so far too, because I think they're waiting for some of these guys to come up. No, not necessarily waiting forever, and they might. I think they'll do what Clay was talking about and possibly add something at the trade deadline. They didn't find a good fit from a hitting perspective, didn't find the right contract level, whatever, with the guys they were interested in, but they consolidate some pieces, then trade and possibly bring some guys up at that time, maybe two, for some reinforcements, because you see where can we fill the holes internally and where can we fill the holes externally with those pieces. But it's an interesting conversation. It's an exciting time for the Tigers as a whole.
Well, 2 years to the playoffs, and they're ramped up pitching-wise anyway. To get us there again, just have to figure out how to hit the ball.
The roster seems to have improved this offseason. I think that's an easy statement, and they were top of the division for the majority of the year last year. Yeah, they scuffled down the stretch, but they still won a series in the playoffs, and they have some momentum. Average age was pretty low last year, so it's going to go up a lot this year, mainly because of the older guys they acquired. But it'll be interesting to see what happens there. But we'll take a quick break. We got to check what's going on in here in studio, Mike. Are the people stealing stuff from in studio? Do we got to call Scott here or what?
There's four shady-looking guys that just carried stuff out of here, so I'm not sure what that means.
Scott usually listens when I'm talking baseball, so if you're listening, Scott, we'll try to protect the studio best we can here.
I can't promise anything,
Mike's not jumping in front of any bullets for you, Scott.
No.
Stick with us. We'll come back with Clay and Mike in studio. You're listening to Sports Intel on Jethro FM. Speaking of collectibles, that's why we have my buddy Clay here in studio. Clay Kregel, he works with me at Encore. We're kind of the two responsible for the memorabilia side of things, and that's been growing pretty fast, much akin to the industry as a whole, because the memorabilia industry as a whole has really grown really since COVID. That's one of the things that actually benefited from COVID. A lot of they kind of say for certain industries, we work in collectibles and Amazon, those industries kind of sped up based on the mechanisms that happened during COVID. They say that events like that can have a tendency to speed industries up. I think that's what happened with memorabilia and Amazon as a whole during that time. But Clay and I were working separately in the memorabilia industry and decided to team up kind of under Encore's roof. So I wanted to update people on memorabilia. I wrote a book on sports memorabilia. I never talk about it on the show. I don't talk about memorabilia a ton or the book, but that is available on our Encore page along with the show shirts and everything like that. But yeah, wanted to have you on, Clay, and talk some memorabilia because we've got a lot going in the memorabilia space here.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Ryan. Like he said, we do have a lot of stuff going on right now. We've been getting a lot of consignments in, lots of new products that has sold, lots of stuff that we just listed too. Today we listed a Wilt Chamberlain. It's a vintage style jersey, limited to 100 by Upper Deck. That one's one of our more valuable consignments that we've had for a customer, and we got all kinds of other stuff listed too. Really cool stuff. We got a Joe Montana, Dwight Clark signed helmet, Joe Montana jersey. We've got a bat from Bo Jackson, Yogi Berra. We've sold baseballs, Ken Griffey Jr., Barry Bonds. Recently added some more cards, sports cards to our collection, which Ryan's more of the game used side of things in terms of memorabilia and game used uniforms, stuff like that. And I kind of work with sports cards more often. I'm at shows pretty much weekly and selling on my own personal eBay account quite often. So, we got a bunch of new card consignments in. The new NFL hot rookies like Drake May, Jackson Dart. We have a few that go for a few thousand each that are super short print. Numbered cards. So we got a lot going on right now.
I want to talk to you about the card part because Clay specializes in that, and I think we're gonna probably do some more kind of content oriented stuff towards this stuff within our business because of our backgrounds and because I think there's a need for it. There's a need for education in the memorabilia marketplace, but some of it is strategies too, strategies of acquiring items, strategies of selling items. We like to give people the opportunity to sell items through us. We do consignments. We're very, reputable and like to give people honest feedback and all of that. And we pride ourselves on our reputation, but it's also in finding the items too, because a lot of these can be rare items, but I'm intrigued by how Clay does some of his stuff with the different shows, because like you said, he goes to a show basically every weekend, and there's all sorts of different ways that you can source items. I cover some of that in my book, but he basically goes to shows, finds cards that have already hit the market, and then kind of repurposes them and gets them into the hands of the people that would kind of want them rather than languishing in a dollar box at a show.
Right. Yeah. That's sort of the fun and everything. It's a sort of a treasure hunt every Saturday, I guess, for the show that I go to. I'm always looking for two different things. One is what's hot. You want to try to buy what's hot at a good price and sell it very quickly. That's what I try to do. And then look for number two, unique items. Items that, cards that might not go for sale often on eBay, that might be limited to 10 copies, might be a short print, might be a rare parallel of a, somebody that, was famous for a blip in time and they don't have any more cards of them. Or, for example, we were talking earlier today, I went to a show on Saturday, and Shohei Ohtani, his card market has gone through the roof, rightfully so. And I found a card. It was graded PSA 9 rookie card for $40. Which the price on that card was probably about $40 last year at this time. I'm guessing the dealer didn't update it, didn't feel like updating it, and wanted to sell it to me for $40. Bought it. 15 minutes later, I walked over to another table, sold it for $105. Now I could have held on to it, and Shohei's a generational player, potentially the best player of all time, moving forward, but. Anytime I can make a quick flip like that, it's money in the pocket, and you keep it rolling. So that's what I try to do with sports cards.
Well, knowledge is power in that kind of situation, and he's selling it for what he wants to sell for, and then you're able to do what you want afterwards. But the Ohtani market is interesting to me because there's no wonder why his market is good as far as, like you said, generational player. The only comp is basically Babe Ruth. I mean, there's not a lot of people doing what he's doing, especially being a high-end pitcher and a high-end hitter. He's basically two MVP candidates in one player, and so then therefore he's paid accordingly. Plus, he's got the Japanese market. Yep. And when you have a background from another country, then you have that whole country behind you. It was the same thing with Ichiro. He was arguably a generational player too, not in the same way, but he was a very good player, very talented, but he had a whole country behind him. So the market improves and you want stuff overseas. But we were talking about this, Clay. He's had a recent spike that's been very sharp that hasn't necessarily coincided with play because it's more been after they stopped last year, after the season ended.
Yeah.
And yes, they did well last year and he did well, but it does seem like he's kind of going exponential, which you had a theory on.
Yeah. So I think a lot of this is obviously the Dodgers won the World Series last year. Who knows? They'll probably win it again this year. Shohei's probably going to win MVP if he keeps up his numbers and everything. But I think a lot of the hype right now, first off, in the world of sports cards and the market of sports cards, preseason is usually when the hype comes in. Every team 0-0. you never know. You might get a surprise out of a team like the Marlins, or the Tigers have been a team in the last couple of years that have sort of come out and surprised people. So everyone's feeling positive about their teams. They're buying up cards before they get disappointed. Sometimes even before the month of May comes around, if you're, say, a White Sox fan over the last few years. But I think the Shohei market has exploded, not just because of the MVP, the World Series, but I think people are predicting a World Baseball Classic, just like a few years ago when they had it, where Shohei's market blew up at that point too. Obviously, he had that famous at-bat against Mike Trout in the ninth inning against Team USA. And yeah, that market has just kind of blown up for the anticipation of opening day, potentially another MVP, potentially another World Series run. We saw the Dodgers make some moves in the offseason to improve those chances of the World Series by adding Kyle Tucker, Edwin Diaz. I'm sure I'm missing like 3 other All-Stars.
They
that
probably signed
for
people,
like
yeah, during the
$700
show.
million, and they don't have to pay them until 2058. But yeah, that Shohei market is going crazy right now, and I don't know when it's going to stop. I don't know if it will stop.
Well, and you hit on 2 things earlier that I kind of cover in my book, talking about the players that are hot, the trending players, trending themes. The example I use in my book is not necessarily outdated. It's an older player, but it was the best possible example at that time because it was Johnny Manziel. When he was in college, his jersey was going upwards. It was going for several $100,000. His game used jersey. There's nobody really in that market. You might have a Brady jersey close if it's a very good jersey, but that's the greatest of all time, and Manziel's jersey was comparable to that. So that's a sell high kind of time because it was basically a small percentage of that just a year or 2 later after Manziel hit the pros, and yes, he kind of had a large fall from grace, but there was no way that he was going to continue to be that good. He had to be one of one to basically continue to have that value. There was no way. But the other one is manufactured rarity, which they're doing a lot better job with nowadays, because they used to, in the era I grew up in, which was the 80s and 90s, that's now called the junk era. Not because I was born in
1980s,
yeah,
right? Not 1880s.
Exactly.
1980s.
It depends on who you ask. But you had the junk era, not because I was born in that era. That did impact that name, but it was they overproduced the cards because there was a lot of demand for cards, and people were buying up cards because their parents had thrown their cards away. Now the companies have kind of gotten wise to that and said, okay, we're not gonna wait for cards to get rare or sit in people's attics. We're just gonna say, hey, here's a one of one. Good luck. There's one of these in these thousands of boxes and packs that we have.
Sure. Yeah. I think that's sort of helped the card market. Like if you were to search Shohei Ohtani rookie card on eBay right now, you're probably going to be able to find 800 different Shohei Ohtani rookie cards, different brands, different sets, different parallels, all of that stuff. So I think it helps increase the value of, hey, I'm the only one with this Shohei Ohtani Cosmic Red 2023 Red Lava numbered to 5 card, or whatever that may be. So I think it's cool for somebody to say, I only have this that you won't be able to have because there's only 3 others in the world, and the chances of you finding the 3 others isn't very high. But some people will look for like the rainbow of specific cards. So what they'll do is they'll try to find the base card, which is the easiest to find, and then they'll find a foil card, which is second easiest to find, and then there's 40, 50 different variations of that exact card. And their whole search is to try to find the blue, the aqua blue, the gold superfractor numbered 1 of 1, and then there's another superfractor numbered 1 of 1, and there's a red numbered to 5. So it kind of just helps with the overall chase of trying to complete your different set, and different ways for you to collect, I guess.
Well, they have to kind of simulate that now with modern day cards or modern day collectibles because, yeah, it used to be a literal treasure hunt. You were trying to find old coins, old whatever. But if you want to collect something that's new, you have to kind of make it rare and manufacture that rarity. So, so it's an interesting concept. But I want to highlight a couple of the collections that we have through Encore because a lot of the fun of it too. Clay kind of focused on the collecting side and the treasure hunt side, but each of these pieces kind of tells a story, and I want to talk about a few of the stories of some of the collections that have been consigned to us. So we'll come back with Clay in studio. Stick with us. You're listening to Sports Intel on Jethro FM. Having a good conversation here with Clay Kregel of Encore Business Group. We work together on a bunch of memorabilia items. And what's fun about this for me is you get to hear the stories and see kind of the history of the game too. We were talking about the modern day, but one of the collections that we have right now is the David Dashow collection. He was he did a lot of umpiring back in the day. He won one of the original Duncan Yo-Yo competitions. This guy was a man of many talents, and he had a lot of connections with professional athletes and actors and a who's who of that day. So he basically amassed 300 plus signed baseballs that have everybody from some of the big names in Tigers history to guys like Don Rickles and popular comedians and actors. And so it's been fun to work with his family, who were the ones that consigned this. It was a labor of love basically for his entire life. He was a salesman and other things over the course of his life, but he amassed this collection, and it was his hobby, and basically he left it to them and said, hey, do what you want. And so we kind of wanted to honor him and talk about him because, yeah, this was a fairly infamous collection too. It was covered in newspapers back in the day, and so we've been progressively selling that. We still have some pieces left with that, but that's the kind of thing that's fun to do because you're highlighting some of the old pieces that every piece has a story.
Yeah, that's been really, really fun to go through. I'm kind of the one that's in charge of getting those listed and doing some of the research and such on that. And seeing some of the just overall baseball history. There's just random games from 1983 and the whole umpire crew signed that ball. Or there's a Jack Morris display with game used baseballs from his no hitter, and one of the balls is signed by Jack. Just a really cool way for the family to move on from that collection, but also
kind of celebrate the legacy.
Celebrate the legacy of him, and those balls all have a story. And it's cool to get those out in the market for people that are wanting a piece of that story. Definitely.
You mentioned one of the pieces that I think has a cool story too. You're talking about the Joe Montana signed helmet. That was the play they actually designed. They wrote down a picture of the play on the helmet, which I thought was cool. The infamous play to the back of the end zone there with Dwight Clark, and so yeah, every piece, all these old pieces have a story. The cards are more of a treasure hunt and kind of collect them all, like Clay was saying, and then these older pieces are kind of a little bit more rare. Not necessarily more rare, I guess, but more vintage and of a different era, and kind of have stories all associated with them. We even have a perfect game jersey from Dennis Martinez of the Expos. That's one. So there's two jerseys in that game. He traded out the jersey about mid-game and then put on a different one. So he actually wore two jerseys in that perfect game. The other one's in the Hall of Fame. So we have one of those, and the other one's in the Hall of Fame. So it's cool to see these pieces that are literally museum quality.
Yeah, it's really cool. As a big sports fan, big sports nut myself, being able to help people get some money out of their collections that they have, whether it's a robust collection like the Dashow collection that we've been going through, or there's the Montana piece was part of a larger collection as well. We've also had a lady that was a family friend of one of ours, and she had a bunch of antiques she didn't really know what to do with, and we thought, hey, maybe we'd She thought there'd be a few $100 worth, and I think we're over $1,000, almost at $1,000 in consignment for her with other listings to go for her. So big and small, we consign it all.
Yeah, if it's that was nice there. Yeah, if it's it doesn't matter if you're trying to kind of clear things out, or the other part of this is it's kind of a butterfly effect, because you take one collection that has 300 pieces like the Dave Dashow collection, and you get it to 300 different people, or somewhere in there, maybe people would buy more than one item, but 200 to 300 other people, and then it becomes a premier part of their collection or the only thing in their collection. And so it then spreads the interest and love of the game. And so it's a fun thing, fun business to be in, and we like helping people with it. We got to direct people to where they can find us here, Clay, if they're interested in the services. Obviously, they can reach out to me and any of the show pages, but we also have our Encore pages as well.
Yeah, yep. So Encore is on Facebook. It's Encore Business Group. There's a post in there. If you are interested in consigning at all, there's a Google form and some of the posts in there that you can just fill out. Just a basic interest form for your collection, and then we'll reach out to you. Can go over, potential value of your collection, and if we think it'd be a viable option for our eBay store, which we are on eBay. We have a very high follower count. We get a lot of listing views, and our eBay store does really well. That's Encore Business Group is the username. That's all one word. And then my personal X account is for my cards. That's KGS Cards is where you can find me. I share some fun pulls that I find in packs, so then share some finds that I find at different card shows, and just some other randomness in the sports card world.
He recently had a post go somewhat viral for a Ricky Vaughn card that was modeled after, I think that was I don't know what year, 89, something like that. But it was modeled after that card, and but it was Ricky Vaughn from Major League fame and Charlie Sheen's character. So yeah, there's a lot of cool stuff to be found out there, and we like unearthing it and helping people sell, buy, what have you. So yeah, feel free to reach out to us. We love just talking about collectibles. That was one reason I wanted to have Clay on the show in general, not only to advertise things. Encore's the presenting sponsor for the Shane Graham Show as well, and they're sponsoring this show. But it's fun to talk about memorabilia, and I don't do it enough. Initially, when I got this show, it's kind of based on talking memorabilia. We went more sports talk, but we want to have Clay back regularly so that we can kind of get a regular memorabilia corner kind of segment here.
Yeah. And one thing, too, is while our expertise is in memorabilia, we do work with pretty much anything. Antiques, admittedly, Ryan and I are not big antique experts, but we've been eBay users long enough to know the best way to research and get the most money out of the items that you want to consign. And if we don't think we're the best option, we have a lot of other connections in the industry for your collection that we'd be happy to work as a pass-through for. So anything and everything, we consign it. Right now we've got different apparel, sports gear. We've got winter boots. We've got all kinds of stuff on our store. So yeah, check us out if you're interested in buying anything. It's Encore Business Group on eBay, or if you're interested in consigning, hit us up on Facebook at Encore Business Group.
Definitely. And Clay's right. You can't be an expert at everything. We want to make a point of saying that. We do have an expertise in memorabilia, but we also, we have connections everywhere because it's kind of a small world once you get into collectibles. So auction houses, different experts around the world. So feel free to reach out, and we'll be talking more memorabilia with Clay, but be sure to follow all of those different links and things. But appreciate you coming on and talking some baseball and memorabilia with us.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Ryan.
Definitely. We'll come back in studio. Mike and I will talk to Brennan Sims of Detroit Bad Boys. We'll switch our attention to basketball and move on with that and see what his thoughts are on the kind of surging Pistons here. So stick with us. You're listening to Sports Intel on Jethro FM. Happy to bring on this next guest. He was on our show previously when I was down at the college football playoff final. So wanted to get him back on, talk some Pistons with him. I was also reading one of his recent articles that I think we'll probably spend a lot of time talking about because there's a very in-depth analysis of 10 things kind of going on with the Pistons that I really enjoyed. But he writes for Detroit Bad Boys. This is Brennan Sims. And Brennan, you came on during a time where I wasn't here. So usually when I'm here, we celebrate the thing of the day. And this is going to be a curveball for you. The thing of the day, it's Kazimir Pulaski Day, who was infamous in kind of the Revolution times, and there's a lot of different Polish events that are now named after him, including one in our town. I'm curious if you've ever had Polish food. We're going to start there. I bet that's not where you had me starting here.
That is not what I expected, but I guess I've had Polish sausage before. It might be the only thing I've had.
Okay, a good kielbasa. That's solid. That's a solid pick. I feel like that's one of the better things that you could pick, really, because really most people that have been, that's the one mainstream one. Most people that have been to an event, sporting event, obviously baseball game, hot dogs, kielbasa, all those kinds of things. So that's a good one. The other one is pierogi, but that's a little bit kind of geographical as well. It's kind of popular in like Pennsylvania. It's not necessarily a Detroit thing so much, although we do have Polish places there. But there's your random thing of the day there, Brennan. We like celebrating that. But I want to get your Pistons expertise here because you wrote a great article. Be sure to follow all these guys at DetroitBadBoys.com. They have a lot of great stuff there. But Brennan had an article a couple weeks ago about 10 things about the Detroit Pistons. And I thought it was a good summary that was also pretty in-depth about kind of some of the ways they've been successful here, because we have this segment every week, Brennan, where we interview a different beat writer or reporter or content creator on the Pistons beat, and it seems like they're all different kinds of conversations. They're all kind of like snowflakes and take different iterations, but it seems like some of the main themes are that this is still kind of an underrated team for a team that is firmly atop the Eastern Conference and by a lot of the power rankings and kind of odds makers, one of the more likely teams to do some damage in the playoffs, but it just doesn't seem like they've really gotten the proper level of respect. And I like how this article went into some of the reasons that, hey, these are some of the reasons they're playing well. This is a big sample size. It's not exactly a small sample size. There's a reason that they've been this good this far into the season.
Yeah, they've just defensively. I know they're underrated because of their offense. In the national media is kind of saying, Kincaid, do it alone. That's kind of the narrative on the Pistons. But there is a path where this defense is just so overpowering that they can lead them to the finals like they did in 04 or like the Bad Boys had back in the day. So this defense, I know it's number 2 in the league, OKC, but it's not a normal defense. We have 2 supercharged defenses in the league right now. The Pistons are one of them, and I think that is their pathway to the finals and to kind of change the national perception of them. But that's their way through their defense.
Definitely. And I do think that the offense is underrated. I'm curious to get your thoughts on this particular thing because I see this going both ways, but it seems like a lot of the national pundits who I don't necessarily follow, but I do listen to them when they do the games that are on national TV. If it's on FanDuel, then I watch George or Johnny and Greg. But I'm curious what you think about the whole theory that the Pistons style isn't conducive to the playoffs, because I've heard a lot of national pundits say that. Stan Van Gundy said it on a recent broadcast. There's several others that have said this, and you know this stuff and analyze this stuff more than I do, but the way I look at it is that defense travels. The way that they're playing the game, hustle, defense, those are things that never really give out. Shooting, that can come and go. You can be pressed by a tough defense and have a bad shooting night. But the effort, the defense, those are things that they do day in and day out, and they never really take their foot off the gas. But it's interesting to me because there's an argument out there saying, oh, well, but everybody else is going to increase their intensity, so their high level of intensity is going to get matched, and then therefore they're not going to look as good next to these teams that are trying every night. I get the argument, but I also think that that could mean they ratchet themselves up a notch too, because whenever they do get into a fight with somebody or get into a game that's a little bit contentious, they have a tendency to bring it that much more.
Yes, I'm in agreement. I don't think that teams necessarily will ever be able to get to the level Detroit can get to, energy-wise or effort-wise. Like, that is already baked in for them, and they are treating every game like it's the playoffs right now in the regular season, which does give them upper hand every game right now. But I think a lot of people are kind of talking about, like, when the game slows down and they throw a lot of bodies at Cade, who can kind of be that safety valve to kind of, take the pressure off of Cade. But I think right now it has to be like a collective effort. Duren is going to get his as a roll man. He can kind of create off the bounce. But from the perimeter, the Pistons are kind of operating at, like, the second option is kind of, it just depends on the day. Like, Tobias is pretty consistent with the post-ups. But in some games, Duncan Robinson will have to heat up. Dennis Jenkins, we kind of want more than what we're seeing lately, but we know what's in there. Like the Cleveland game, he made those 3 free throws, so you can trust him. He's been a big game player. Ron Holland, of course, with the effort and the transition finishing, and Javonte Green making threes. But in the playoffs, when the game does slow down and the scouts know their tendencies and everything, that second option or second perimeter threat is going to be a big deal. But like you said, that defense, it travels. And if the Pistons' defense is as good as I think it is, I think it makes the offensive firepower question mark a little less important if the defense is super special, like I think it is with Asar and will be Stu back. So I do understand the hesitancy to see if this team can really make some noise because of the offense, but that defense is special. I just keep coming back to the defense because I don't think it's normal the way they fly around and force turnovers and stuff.
Not at all. And I do think that there's a decent amount of upside on the offense as a whole because, yeah, Cade probably, maybe there's another level that he can unlock as his career goes on, but he's playing at an MVP pace. I expect that to continue. He's, for how much he's handling the ball, he's keeping the turnovers in check, relatively speaking. His shooting is looking good. He's got a lot of pressure on him, but he does seem to be handling it well. And then the discussion has always been on the secondary options, but when your secondary options are guys like Duren, who has had a legitimately good all-star season, and man, he's come back from the break. That's one of the things I noticed about your article, talking about him in depth, because I feel like for as good as he's been, he hasn't really been highly touted enough. They're basically now bandying about the all-star thing and saying, oh, well, yeah, first-time all-star. But for his age, I feel like one, nobody gives him credit for his actual age because he looks like he's about 40. So that's a tough part. I think he just looks older. I can't imagine when he was like a young kid, because I've known kids like that like have grown men bodies, and then people are like, well, why is he being so childish? Well, he's 13, so he's actually a child. He's an adult now, but he's not a very old adult, and he's got a lot of development to do, but he's got a lot of skills. His body is obviously very developed, but I like how he has combined some sneaky good skills with what I've seen as an increased level of aggression even post All-Star break. I think he's kind of trying to take the whole number 2 thing a little serious, a little personally, and saying, well, wait, okay, everybody's saying K doesn't have enough help. I'm out here being an All-Star, and yeah, I benefit from some of the, like everybody does, from from Cade and his playmaking and Duncan and his gravity that he's establishing and the ball movement on the team and all of that. But I'm still out here getting mine, and I'm getting down on the post and dominating. It feels like he's kind of taken that aggression up a level here, even post break.
Oh, yeah, definitely. And when I was saying the second option, I was kind of strictly talking about perimeter from the perimeter, because like you said, Duren is an all-star at 22, doesn't get enough credit for that, or his defensive growth, because it was always an effort thing, or you thought it was effort, but JB's putting him in the right spot, he's executing it. And offensively, I think Duren can reach another level. Like you said, the skills he's shown ball handling, like taking the board off the glass and just getting it and going. Like it gives, like sometimes the guards can kind of just run the floor because Duren can get it. And, kind of start the offense that way. He can kind of be a hub from the free throw line. And he made a mid-range jumper against Evan Mobley and the Cavs the other night. It's only 22. Like there's no telling how good Duren can be because he can do it catching lobs. He can do it facing up if he has a speed advantage. He can post smalls, like you said, super aggressive, and averaging 26 points and 14 rebounds since the All-Star break. He won Eastern Conference Player of the Week this week. Like honestly, he has a chance to make All-NBA. Like he could make third team depending on how everything shakes out. Like the sky's the limit for Jalen Duren, and the fact that we have him and Cade here, so young, and they can grow so much together. They aren't close to their peaks, and they're already doing stuff like this, like leading the NBA. So, sky's the limit for Duren.
Exactly. Even over the course of the year, because I think people look at the years as kind of stagnant and linear and say, okay, well, this year he's this, and then next year he'll have an off season and he can improve, and then he can be that. Well, that's not true for younger guys. The average age of this team is pretty low. It's one of the younger teams in the league, and they I think are due for some improvement throughout the year. Yeah, it's going to be hard for Cade to make large leaps because he's already at the top of the league as a whole, but Duren has shown some improvement throughout the year. He improved his defense prior to the year. That's looked better and better. He looks like he's got increased defensive awareness. I always used to say with him that last year and the year before, it was kind of like, okay, if he was on NBA 2K, his defensive awareness would have been like a 40. It would have been pretty low, but it was because he wasn't used to the flow of the NBA game, and he got used to it. He's I think learned some things from Beef Stew because they've played off each other nicely, being that low pairing, kind of the Bash brothers down there. And I think with guys like him, Thompson is the same way. I know he's been highly touted for his defense, and he should be, but he also has a lot of offensive capability as well. So we'll take a quick break, but I want to come back and talk about the potential improvement as the season goes on, and how this team could be pretty dangerous in the playoffs because they will be on the fresh side. So we'll come back with Brennan Sims of Detroit Bad Boys. Stick with us. You're listening to Sports Intel on Jethro FM.
From the GarbarinoRoofs.com studios in Granville.
Country with a twist. Jethro FM. 1530 AM. WYGR Wyoming Grand Rapids. 94.9 FM Grand Rapids. 99.5 FM Lowell. And Jethro South. 980 AM WAKV Otsego Plainwell. 98.9 FM Otsego. And 105.1 FM Kalamazoo. Available worldwide at jethro.fm.